Well, the Triple Crown preps are in full swing this coming weekend. Three big races, the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, the Bluegrass at Keeneland, and the Santa Anita Derby out at Santa Anita. Best way to play those races? You know the drill. Those races, all races, every day, anytime, anywhere. Naira Bets. Head over to nairabets.com if you're not a member. We will match you with $200 your initial deposit. Use the promo code MATCH200. This Saturday, the bankroll builders continue. The penultimate one this year, actually. Bet 50 or more to win on anybody in the Wood Memorial on the app and the app only. Win or lose, $20 will be added to your bankroll for the Kentucky Derby. We'll talk about all three of those races, and we will start right here in New York with the Wood Memorial. And the Wood Memorial, an interesting race, actually. I think there are a lot of contenders in here. And we'll start out with a horse who is favored in the morning line and will likely vie for favoritism with the number 6 Prevalence, and that is Risk Taking, the 4-horse. Risk Taking, as you can see, easily took our Withers. This was 2 months ago. He's had some time to grow up. Now, I think in a lot of ways, Risk Taking in his running style and his Beyer speed figures is comparable to Greatest Honor. Obviously, Greatest Honor did not run well last week in Florida. The hope is that Risk Taking will take a step forward, the step forward that frankly, Greatest Honor never took. He has really improved since they stretched him out in the dirt. 82 Beyer his first time in a mile and an eighth, 89 the next time. Takes another step forward, and he runs a Beyer in the mid-90s. He can throw himself right into the mix for Kentucky Derby. He's a horse that figures to have no problems going long. The ultimate question for him and for all of them, is he good enough? And that's an important segue to the next horse, and that is Weyburn and Crowded Trade. As we'll start out with the horses that prepped in New York, and we'll take a look at their terrific stretch battle in the Gotham. Will these horses improve? Now, they don't have to improve as much because this was a fast race, 95 Beyer for both of them. Crowded Trade appeared to have the race won, but Weyburn would not be denied, battling back inside of him and prevailing by a nose. Weyburn is probably the one of the two that I think you can have more confidence. A Pioneer of the Nile and AP&D Dam is going to want a mile and an eighth and maybe even further. Crowded Trade, more than ready. Not clear he's a horse that gets better with more distance, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a problem. He is a supremely talented horse, Crowded Trade, who in just 2 starts, he broke a little better last time, but he got left. He made that big wide move. Weyburn repelled him. Weyburn, he is a major threat in here. He didn't draw a great post on the outside. We'll see what kind of position he gets depending on what the 7 Candyman Rocket does, because they could be moving a bit up front. But Weyburn improved a huge amount and has shown that he's as good as he was in his second race when he lost a tough maiden race, and he came back with that big effort for Jimmy Jerkins. Make no mistake, both of these horses are players in here and potentially in any Triple Crown races. Then there's the unknown factor, and that's the number 6 Prevalence. Take a look at him winning last time at Gulfstream, and I want people to note in this race, some nonsense was written that this was a hugely confident ride and he could have won by a lot more, and all the usual gibberish you hear about horses. This is simply not the case. Tyler Gaffalione asked this horse for run. He's riding him pretty strongly here, and he will ride him through the end. And one of the reasons he's riding him is I guess they wanted to work him an extra 16th of a mile. I got to tell you, as 83 Beyer in the field he beat in this race, the runner-up came back to, I think he's finishing about now, actually, in the Florida Derby. Does not inspire confidence. And I don't have a lot of confidence in the horses that ran down in Florida this winter. I don't have a lot of confidence this horse is going to get better with more distance. He's going to take a lot of money. And I think, for me at least, Prevalence is the major play against in this year's Wood. Brooklyn Strong is a wild card in this race. His win in the Remsen was a terrific, terrific race. There's an argument it may have been as good, if not better, than any single race that was run by a 2-year-old last year. He's a son of Wicked Strong who won this race just 7 years ago. Shouldn't have a problem with the distance. The figure of 94, well, there is some debate. That's a number that could have been 5-6 points higher. It was a very, very fast race when you compare it to the Demoiselle. We'll see. Was it the wet track? Now, what do you do with Brooklyn Strong, who's had issues? He hasn't been able to race. They're playing this race to get him the Derby. You know they are trying to win or be second or run well in here to get to the Derby. So he is cranked up and ready to roll. He needs the points. He needs to finish at least second in all likelihood to make the Derby. I think he's the wild card in this race. Was it the wet track? I'm not sure. They buried Known Agenda, came back and he won the Florida Derby. I think of these 4 horses, the major contenders in here, because I'm throwing out Prevalence, Brooklyn Strong, Crowded Trade, Risk Taking, and Weyburn, all horses I would use in any multi-race wagers. But I think Brooklyn Strong will be the biggest price of them. He's training very well at Parks, and if he is as good as that Remsen suggests, he can definitely win this race, but make no mistake, this is a very strong group of horses looking forward to the Wood Memorial. Turning our attention to the Bluegrass at Keeneland, while we'll look at quite a few players in here, this may well turn out to be a two-horse race. Now, some think the Bluegrass is a one-horse race, and we'll take a look at that horse who will be heavily favored. He's 3-5, I believe, on the line, and that's Essential Quality. This is Essential Quality's win in the Southwest last time as he comes through the gloom, a race that they finally ran at Oaklawn, and he got another perfect trip, and he was a dominating winner. There's no doubt he's talented. I would not deny that. The problem I have with Essential Quality is he has had an absolutely perfect trip in every single one of his 3 stakes wins. He's got tactical speed, which works for him. There isn't much pace in this race, and that helped in the Breeders' Futurity. He can sit and wait behind horses, and that helped him in his last 2 races. He made his move on the far, far outside, the right place to be at Oaklawn that weekend with all the rain that they got. He beat Spielberg, who had a tough trip, breaking badly. Spielberg came back and ran poorly in the Florida Derby. He did not improve his Beyer speed figures, particularly from last year. Is he a horse improving? Can he take a big step forward in the Bluegrass Stake? I don't want to take 3-5, but he is the horse to beat in here. But he has to deal with Highly Motivated. Now, you may have seen Highly Motivated finish third with a rough trip in the Gotham in his return race as a 3-year-old. We'll take a look at his last start, and one of the reasons he's running at Keeneland, yeah, the connections have 2 horses in the Wood Memorial, but also when he ran on Breeders' Cup Friday, the day of all the 2-year-old races, this win here was the highest Beyer speed figure recorded by any runner that day. Central Quality got a 95 winning the Juvenile. Highly Motivated got a 96. Now, that was 6.5 furlongs. You have to ask yourself how confident you are. He gets better with more distance. He doesn't have a pedigree that suggests that's nearly the case. But he has grown up. I thought he ran well in the Gotham. He had a good learning experience so that he didn't break. He was steadied on the backstretch. He had some trouble in there. And I thought he ran well in a race that was clearly dominated by forwardly placed horses. Highly Motivated also has the speed, and he could be in a position to be the inside speed on Essential Quality. To me, there are 2 and only 2 in here, but let's talk about some others in here. There are still people that think Keep Me in Mind is a contender for the Triple Crown races. None of them share my name, but that doesn't mean he isn't. Keep Me in Mind did not draw well in this race, drawing the far outside. We'll take a look at his effort in the Kentucky Jockey Club last November. He's going to join that list of horses that can absolutely win the Derby because he won a race at Churchill Downs. Now, I also think that kind of stuff is voodoo and don't believe in it. The reality is he beat a very weak field that included a horse that's coming back in here, Sitting on Go, who wants less distance, not more distance. Came back in the Rebel. He was an absolute no-show. Yes, the race was dominated towards the front end. He could have made a little bit of a run. Will he run better? Perhaps. Maybe he lacks some training coming into that race, but he comes into a race with no pace. It's not clear he's even of the quality to compete in here, and I am not a fan of his. Rombauer is a bit of a wild card. We'll take a look at him winning the El Camino Real Derby. That was at Golden Gate. And he certainly didn't beat much in here, and it was on synthetic. Now, to be fair, this horse ran a solid second in a 2-year-old Grade 1, the American Pharaoh. That was not a very strong field. The winner-getter number did not come back and run well in a subsequent start at Oaklawn Park. Don't think those horses were that good, and he was ineffectual with a very good setup, a pace setup in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. No reason to believe that he's as good as these horses, and I think his win on synthetic was more a function of the field he faced. I respect his trainer, Mike McCarthy, a great deal, just not necessarily his talent. The wild card, and perhaps if you want to use a third horse, you want to use Untreated. We'll take a look at Untreated, breaking his maiden last time at Tampa Bay. Now, Untreated was an extremely highly touted first-time starter for the late Paul Pompa and trainer Chad Brown when he debuted at Gulfstream, and he absolutely bombed. But the connections thought very highly of him. There was a dispersal of Paul Pompa's horses after he passed away, unfortunately, and this horse was bought by Team Valor, transferred to Todd Pletcher, went to Tampa, and ran a very fast race on Tampa Bay Derby. In fact, a faster race than the Tampa Bay Derby, and you can see that figure inside with Hidden Stash on the rail. He's obviously good. I'm going to throw out a stat at you. It applies to this horse as well as a runner that Todd Pletcher has in the Wood Memorial. Todd Pletcher, off a maiden win in a great estate going a dirt route, is 1 for 41 over the last 5 years. I think Untreated's good, but the statistics say that throwing these horses in the deep end off of their maiden wins has not worked out. To me, it's Highly Motivated, Essential Quality. I prefer Highly Motivated. I'm a little bit skeptical of Essential Quality, and I think at the price, I prefer a horse who can wire him in this race. We'll see how it plays out. An interesting matchup. And finally, we'll head out to the Run Happy Santa Anita Derby. And The horse to beat in here is Medina Spirit, and it just shows how deep Bob Baffert's barn is. He lost Life is Good, much like last year when he lost the Doll and he lost Charlatan. He still had Authentic. Well, he's still got Concert Tour. He's got Medina Spirit and some others. We'll look at Medina Spirit and Dream Shake to start it out, finishing 2-3 behind the unfortunately on the shelf Life is Good. You almost get the feeling that Medina Spirit at times in this race was being ridden kind of to prevent others from challenging Life is Good, and yet he still managed to draw away from Dream Shake. And I believe he's the speed in here, and I believe he's very much the worst to beat, and I think he could be a player coming to the Kentucky Derby. I will not discount Dream Shake, even though he had a good trip, and he couldn't handle Medina Spirit. It was just his second start, and he has every right to improve, and he's absolutely the horse that can win, even though I very much think that Medina Spirit's the horse to beat. I would say the Great One was negatively affected by the tactics involving Medina Spirit, and maybe he'll run better, but maybe, just maybe, his maiden win 2 back was because he met a soft field and had an easy trip. His other races do not suggest he's necessarily good enough. Let's take a look once again at Medina Spirit, but also another runner in here, Roman Centurion, who was a poor fourth in the San Felipe we just watched. This is the Robert Lewis. Medina Spirit's performance in here was jaw-droppingly good. Even though he just wins by a neck, and he didn't get a super fast Beyer speed figure, though he got a good enough one with a 94 Beyer, he battled in a huge pace that completely and badly took a toll on all the other runners, and yet he was able to hold off the closers, including Roman Centurion, who got an absolutely perfect trip. If Roman Centurion couldn't beat Medina Spirit under those circumstances, how is he going to beat him under circumstances that may very well be more favorable for Medina Spirit? Well, he's not going to do it unless he improves dramatically, especially off his last race, or Medina Spirit doesn't show up. All of those things could happen, but none of those things are things that I am counting on. Let's take a look at a new face in here, and that's Rock Your World for trainer John Sadler. Run twice, run on the turf in both his starts, a facile winner each time, including the Pasadena that we'll look at here. You look through his pedigree, and the reality is that there's a little bit of dirt from the dam, but it's really much more production. The first foal was turf, and it's all turf. They're taking a shot. People take shots. I can't blame them. Kentucky Derby's coming up. You want to take your shot to see if you belong in the classics. It's not impossible, but unlikely. Rock Your World's a nice turf horse. Unlikely to be able to reproduce this form in the dirt. And keep in mind, he doesn't need to reproduce it. He needs to improve substantially. The likelihood of that seems to be about 0. People love to talk about the other Bob Baffert. You always hear about how you should bet the other Bob Baffert, except when the horse that's a short price of his wins when he runs too. You never hear about it then. Defunded will be a big price in here, and I do think he's an interesting horse. You take a look at his last race. He had some trouble in here. The rider, Joel Rosario, kept him very wide throughout the running. You're going to see him getting in some traffic there, a nice education. Overall, he had a pretty good trip, but he did have to fight his way through, and he was an impressive winner. Bob Baffert, for what it's worth, stretching out on the dirt off maiden wins, is 12 for 37 over the last 5 years, a very paltry 131 ROI, but in Defunded's case, he'll be a big price. The question is he going to improve with more distance? Dialed in, no reason he shouldn't, but is he going to improve enough with that little bit of experience to beat these horses? I doubt it, but at a big price, if you want to throw him in, I wouldn't blame you. I'm not trying to beat Medina Spirit, though I do think that the horse Dream Shake, who we beat last time, is a contender if he can step forward. Medina Spirit's the one to beat. Excellent preps, exciting time of the year. Best way to play these races, all the races, is Naira Bets. Head over to nairabets.com. If you're not a member, use the promo code MATCH200 and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. And finally, the penultimate bankroll builder. Bet 50 or more to win on any horse in the Wood Memorial through the app and the app only. Win, lose, or draw. You'll get a $20 bonus for Derby Day. Enjoy all the preps this weekend for the Kentucky Derby.